Quilters know that perfect piecing starts with one thing, a consistent 1/4 inch seam. What you might not know is that your serger can give you that same precision too. Hey Serger Bees, I'm Sookie, your serger coach, here to help you build confidence with your serger one stitch at a time. And in today's video, I will walk you through 2 ways to get the perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance with speed, strength, and accuracy. Option 1 is overlock piecing, and the good news is everyone can do this on their serger because we're just using a basic overlock stitch. Now, why choose this option? Well, if you're a quilter, you'll love the clean, strong seams and how tidy the back looks. But it's not just for quilting. Anytime you need a true 1/4 inch seam allowance with a finished edge, this technique really shines. Think bag making, stuffed animals, doll clothes, garment sewing. Basically, anytime a pattern calls for a 1/4 inch and you want the inside to look just as neat as the outside, this could be the stitch option for you. There are a couple of stitch setups that will give you a true 1/4 inch seam once you fine-tune the cutting width. And yes, I do have a favorite, but I'll show you both, and then you can decide which one you like best. And by the way, I'd love to know which team you're on. Team 3-thread or Team 4-thread? Drop it in the comments once you've seen them both. For each, I start with all the tension set at 4. But remember, you may need to adjust depending on your fabric and your machine. If you'd like a refresher on how tensions work, I have an entire video on that. I'll link it in the description below. Option 1 is the traditional 4-thread overlock with both needles. Stitch length at 2.5 and the cutting width at 6.0 millimeters. Then there's my favorite, the 3-thread wide with the left needle. Stitch length at 2.5 and the cutting width at 6.0 millimeters. I like this one because it's a little less bulky without that extra needle thread. Plus, you're saving an entire spool of thread. Okay, now let's test out the 3-thread wide. But if you're using the 4-thread overlock, you'll make the same types of adjustments. Place your fabric right sides together, align the raw edges with the knife, and let the blade just barely trim the fabric. Think of it as giving the edge a little haircut. That's the trick to consistency. Oh, and here's a serger bonus. You don't need to lift the presser foot every time. Just keep stitching piece after piece and let the serger do the work. And remember, every fabric behaves a little differently, so always test first. Sew a sample seam, measure, and then nudge your cutting width until it's exactly a 1/4 inch. When you're finished, press to the darker side or however your pattern suggests. Finally, what about those thread tails? I actually have a whole video on finishing thread tails, which I'll link it below. But here's the good news. With quilt piecing, most of those seams are secured inside another seam, so you don't need to worry about unraveling. Just clip them at the ends and move on. By the way, if you're a quilter trying out your serger, let me know in the comments. I'd love to cheer you on and keep creating quilting with a serger content just for you. Option 2 is chain stitch piecing. So why choose this one? Well, the needle side looks just like a straight stitch and the seams can be pressed in either direction or pressed open. It's perfect when you want less bulk, more like traditional patchwork, but still with the speed of a serger. Because did you know that most sergers can stitch twice as fast as most sewing machines? Now to do this, you will need a serger that is a combination machine, meaning it can switch between overlock and chain stitch or cover stitch, or you can use a cover stitch only machine. That's a great option too, especially if you like keeping your regular serger set up for overlock. For today's demo, I'm using my Bernina L890, which is a combination serger, and I've got it set up for the 2-thread chain stitch. On my machine, the center needle is a scant 1/4 inch from the edge of the presser foot, so that gives me the seam allowance that I would like. On your serger, you may need to adjust or even mark the bed of your machine to get a perfect 1/4 inch. From there, it's simple. Place your fabrics right sides together, line them up with your guide, and stitch away. And here's the best part. With chain stitching, you don't need a leader. And you don't even have to lift the presser foot. The serger will stitch right off the fabric, leaving a neat, secure chain. Just keep stitching, and as long as you leave a little thread tail, the stitch will lock. And like I mentioned before, you can press in either direction or even press the seam open. Just follow the pattern. And now that you know how to get the perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, if you'd like to learn how to get any seam allowance on a serger, check this video out right here. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a creative day. Bye-bye.